Fox Sports. Bob, I hope you're having an awesome day, man. Welcome to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
Bob, I want to get your reaction with a lot of different things, and we've spent a lot of time involving the Bubba Wallace incident at Talladega, and I want to kind of get your thoughts. Walk me back to Sunday when you hear the news coming down from NASCAR that they had found a noose in the garage. Kind of walk me through your reactions.
Well, my reaction was, obviously I hadn't heard anything about it. I haven't been on site during the pandemic, and it was, I can't say I was totally surprised, because that there are people, because that there was a possibility of Bubba Wallace, being threatened. And so you when NASCAR sent out that release, you're like, wow, it happened. NASCAR called it a heinous act in that statement on Sunday night. And you were like, man, how is the sport going to react, and how is Bubba going to react, and are they going to be able to figure out what happened?
Were you pleased with what NASCAR was able to do to get a quick investigation? I mean, obviously, to get 15 FBI agents to interview a roster full of talent. Were you pleased with what NASCAR was able to do?
Well, I mean, I'm glad the investigation was done quickly, and I'm glad that they were able to determine that garage pull rope that was fashioned in the way of a noose had been in that area since at least October of last year, which is when that garage opened. Right, that's the new garages at Talladega that they just built that weren't around before last October. So October was the first time that they were used. I think it was obviously Monday was a great display of a "we've got your back" moment for Bubba. Sure. All the drivers walking with him. I mean, that was a powerful moment, and that's a moment that will live on. It is unfortunate that by NASCAR releasing that statement on Sunday night and saying they felt that a heinous act had happened, knowing that because of the COVID-19 protocols, that was primarily NASCAR people in the garage, officials, crew members, team members, safety workers. I guess there could be some cleanup crews and some others in there, but they somewhat said, we believe one of the people in the NASCAR community did this. And so even as the people were walking behind Bubba on Monday, there had to be a little bit of wonder, like, is the person who did this out there walking with them?
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And,
yeah, sure.
And so it's you had that great moment, but it's unfortunate that there was that thought that turned out to not be true, in the sense of that it wasn't anybody who did it targeting Bubba. Now, Frank, granted, NASCAR's still trying to figure out why that garage pull down rope was shaped like that in the first place.
Bob, you were in garages all across NASCAR. You've been around for the sport. It's one of the reasons I reached out to you. I've been through the pit areas very briefly, but not. I mean, you cover one event, you kind of struck because you see the access that you guys are able to give. And when you see a garage pull down rope, is that normal? I mean, do you see I'm sure you've seen some of the photos out there, and I don't know if these are fabricated.
Yeah, I posted a photo of the rope from October 2019 after we got the results of the investigation. I went back and looked at some video that I had taken on the Monday morning. Remember, the race was, I think they get some of the laps in, and then they had to postpone the rest of Monday. And I was taking video in the garage, and I have a video of what looks like a noose in that garage, and so, but in general, you don't see ropes shaped like that. And NASCAR said that on Sunday night they went through the garage and didn't see garage pull-down ropes in that shape. But, you do see ropes and those types of things in the garage, whether they're done for, to pull up and down a garage door or to hold something together in a garage. Like, it's not rare to see, or I would say it's not unusual to see a piece of rope being used for something. But obviously, you don't see it in that formation.
But and I'm not trying to take up for one side or the other, but I just look. I don't even have a garage. I don't even have a carport. But you look at manual doors. You sometimes those doors are pretty heavy, right? I mean, you got to be able to get the torque to get those things up and down, right? So I'm not trying to look for an excuse, but is there? I guess you do have to wonder about why a particular knot was tied that direction, but. Maybe it requires a lot of torque to get the door open, right, up and down.
Yeah. Although, we just don't know, and you don't really want, from a safety standpoint, you don't want things with loops or stuff, and then where people could get, an arm caught, or if it was lower to the ground, trip, Oh,
great point.
Get their foot caught in it. So it doesn't. It wouldn't seem to have a very. It doesn't seem to be a kind of logical thing to have, right, in that area. But I'm also not a mechanic, sure. And I can't say, that, in some instance it might be useful or why somebody would do that. But hopefully NASCAR can kind of figure out, what it was doing there in the first place. But that being said, it was there on in October, and, and again, I didn't notice it. I mean, I saw it in my video, but I can't say I noticed it. But, you would think that other people had seen it and for whatever reason weren't alarmed enough to, go ask somebody why is it like that?
Who found, because I've listened to Steve Phelps, I've listened to an interview last night with Don Lemon and Bubba Wallace, I've listened to other ones, and I'm still trying to connect the dots. Who found the particular item, and I guess maybe my question is, and I see your photo, and this is actually a photo that a lot of listeners have shared with me that they've took and they've highlighted the particular rope. But I'm curious, do you know who found the actual noose or the rope?
Yeah, it was a crew member from the 43 team, and he told his crew chief, and his crew chief came over and. From my understanding, took a photo and cut it down. It's one of his crew members, and he, and he certainly was alarmed by it.
So was Bubba notified by his crew or by the president of NASCAR?
He was notified by the president of NASCAR about it. I think the crew chief told NASCAR, and they said, "Okay, we're going to send somebody to Bubba to tell him." That's my, from the way Bubba described it, that is the way it happened. And then Bubba obviously went to his crew chief and said, "Are we sure we're not overreacting or anything like that?" And his crew chief was obviously said, "Look, this is not normal. This is not what I would expect to see in the garage." And I'm not using that as a quote, just saying that's kind of what Bubba says that he indicated to him.
Hey, you've been covering NASCAR for a long time. Bubba, because of his race, has had to overcome a lot to be able to break into a sport, to be able to go in popularity. Has he received threats before? I mean, is there other incidents out there that involves threats to Bubba Wallace?
I can't. Obviously, nothing like nothing. Sure. Nothing that I would say. Nothing that heinous, right? That vile. From my understanding, I mean, nothing that. I mean, he's certainly been called names and has heard things, but I don't know. I don't believe that he's had those threats. And Bubba even said a couple of weeks ago that his father had texted him, a little bit worried about Bubba's safety in the sense that Bubba would tend to get in his golf cart and drive into to the campsites and talk to fans. And he's like, can you still do that? Or will he, Bubba's saying, can I do that and have, do I need to have security with me? What is going to be, what will I be able to do? Because, he knows that there were certainly threats made after he became more vocal and advocated for the ban of the Confederate flag.
Bob, where does NASCAR go from here?
That's a great question. I think they, hopefully they figure out why that rope was tied in that fashion, and that there's an explanation for it. And then, I think they keep doing what they're doing in the sense of having drivers who will stand behind their each other, drivers who will take action when it comes to advocating against racial inequality, and keep fulfilling kind of the promises that they've been making. I certainly. You can look at this and say they, that they overreacted, that they didn't, their statement on Sunday night didn't really give much leeway to, just a coincidence or a mistake of some sort that wasn't directed at Bubba. But, I still think they will approach things with a heightened awareness because, there's just too much on social media and too much, kind of polarizing anger out there that they can't ignore.
Bob, if you were allowed to ask a question yesterday to Steve Phelps on the president, it was just a one-sided teleconference. He made an announcement and released a statement and talked about it. If you could have asked one question, what would it have been?
It would have been, why were you so convinced that it was a heinous act, as they said in their statement, and not, had seemed to give any, have any thoughts that this could have just been, would turn out to what it was.
Bob, I want to say this, living in the state of Alabama, and I don't know if you think it's fair or not, but listening to the audience today and yesterday, we did an extended show yesterday. We went, because it involves something locally. This is the footprint of a lot of NASCAR fans here. But a lot of people feel like that NASCAR kind of embarrassed the state of Alabama. You think that's a fair opinion?
It's fair. They pointed the finger at themselves, right? Or Talladega itself, right? The only people allowed in the garage because of under the COVID-19 protocols were NASCAR officials, team members, safety crews, and maybe a cleanup crew, cleaning crews, EMS, and maybe some parts suppliers. So, what NASCAR did on Sunday night, they said, either it's somebody who travels with everyone every week or somebody who, has access inside the track who's locally who did it. And you think that most of those people love NASCAR, right? And so in many ways they accuse, one of their own of having done this, right? And so, I think and in doing so, they left open the potential conclusion that it was, somebody local who was working that race, and somebody from the area who wasn't happy with NASCAR and would have that type of hate to do such a thing.
Hey, Bob, promote the things that you're involved in, because you do a lot of things. You've been covering the sport for a long time. We know the basics, foxsports.com. We're affiliated with NASCAR as well here on our station. We try to feature as many people as possible throughout our lineup for 12 hours. Promote where people can stay in contact with you with everything that you provide to NASCAR fans.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at Bob Pockrass. I also contribute a lot to the NASCAR on Fox Facebook page and also to foxsports.com. Try to put up videos when we do interviews and obviously stories throughout the week looking at issues in the sport.
Bob, thank you again for spending a couple of minutes with us. And if you get a chance, you can get a Roll Tide into Larry Mack. I mean, we try to feature him often too, and he's a big Alabama fan. It's hard to get him to talk something besides Alabama when we get him on, though.
Yeah, you love that enthusiasm, but sometimes you only have 5 minutes and you don't want to get it started.
Sure, no doubt. Hey, Bob, thank you for your time. I appreciate you accepting the interview request, and thank you for helping us kind of get to the bottom of this.
All right, thank you.